A printing press doesn't care whose paper it runs on. That's the basic fact at the center of this case. A press is a machine. It runs when you turn it on. It stops when you turn it off. It doesn't distinguish between a job that belongs to the company that owns it and a job that belongs to someone who has no right to be there at all. It consumes ink and paper and electricity and produces output at the same rate regardless of who authorized the run. The owner of a printing company pays for the equipment. He pays the lease on the building, the maintenance contracts, the insurance, the utilities. He pays the paper stock, the ink, the bindery consumables. He pays the people who operate the machines. He pays for all of it around the clock, whether the presses are running or idle, because that is what it costs to be in the business. What he does not pay for is someone else using all of that at night to run jobs for clients who are paying someone else entirely. My name is Daniel Rowe, and this case is about what happens when the most expensive asset in a building becomes someone else's profit center after the owner goes home. The client was a man named Howard Getz. He owned Getz Print Group, a commercial printing operation in the western suburbs of Chicago. Not a small shop. Getz ran 4 offset presses, 2 digital production lines, a bindery, and a fulfillment department that handled warehousing and direct mail for a client base that included regional retailers, insurance companies, and a handful of mid-sized national brands. Annual revenue just under $12 million. 41 employees, a business Howard had built over 27 years from a single press in a rented garage. He was 63, methodical, plain-spoken, with the specific fatigue of someone who has spent 3 decades solving problems that most people don't know exist. He came to me not through an accountant or an attorney, but through a former client of mine, a plant manager at a food manufacturer who had worked with me on an internal theft case 2 years prior. Howard trusted the referral. He was not entirely sure he trusted what he was beginning to suspect. My consumables costs are up 32% over 2 years. I've looked at every explanation I can find. Volume is up, but not 32%. Paper prices increased, I've accounted for that. Ink costs moved, I've accounted for that. I cannot account for the rest. My production manager tells me it's waste, press calibration issues, spoilage on complex jobs, substrate inconsistency. He has an explanation for everything. The explanations are all plausible, but they add up to 32% and I don't buy it. What's your night shift situation? We run 2 shifts. Day shift 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., full crew, I'm on site. Night shift 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., skeleton crew. 3 operators and a supervisor. I'm not there. My production manager, a man named Dale Ferris, he oversees both shifts on paper, but he's a day shift person. He's rarely there past 8 p.m. Who supervises the night shift when Ferris isn't there? A senior press operator named Kevin Marsh. He's been with me 12 years. Dale promoted him to night shift lead 4 years ago. And the job scheduling. Who controls what runs on which press and when? Dale. He builds the production schedule. He decides which jobs go to which press, which shift, which sequence. He manages the job tickets, the materials pulls from inventory, the press make ready. Everything goes through Dale. Dale Ferris controlled the schedule. Dale Ferris controlled materials. Dale Ferris was rarely present during night shift. And Kevin Marsh, Dale's appointment, 4 years in the role, ran the plant from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. with minimal oversight. Howard had noticed the consumables. He hadn't yet connected the consumables to the night shift. I told him I'd need to come in as a production efficiency auditor, someone reviewing workflow, press utilization, materials management, the kind of engagement a plant of this size would commission periodically. Howard posted the engagement as real. Dale Ferris was notified. He was told to cooperate fully. This time, my name was Daniel Cross, production efficiency consultant, background in commercial print operations, press utilization analysis, waste reduction, shift scheduling optimization. The kind of person who understands the difference between a Heidelberg and a Komori and knows what a make-ready should cost on a 4-color job. Enough technical knowledge to be credible in a press room, enough distance from the operation to have a reason to ask questions. Dale Ferris met me at the plant entrance on a Tuesday morning. He was 51, compact, deliberate, with the roughened hands of someone who had come up through the press room and hadn't entirely left it. He ran the operation with the confidence of a man who knows every machine, every operator, every quirk of every job that comes through the building. He was cooperative, as someone told by their employer to cooperate is cooperative, thorough in his explanations, never evasive exactly, just always slightly ahead of my questions, which meant he'd thought about what a consultant would ask and had answers prepared. The plant itself was what Howard's description suggested, a serious mid-sized operation, 4 offset presses ranging from a 2-color unit used for simple stockwork to a 6-color Heidelberg Speedmaster that handled the complex brand work. The digital lines ran variable data and short-run jobs. The bindery behind a partition wall held a stitcher, a perfect binder, and a cutter that could handle full pallet stacks. The smell of ink and paper and press wash that every commercial print plant has, a specific combination that doesn't leave your clothes for hours after you exit. I spent day 1 on what I told Dale was a baseline assessment, walking every station, mapping the workflow, understanding how a job moved from order entry to shipping. He walked me through it himself. Job comes in, enters the MIS, the management information system that tracked every order, every materials pull, every press hour. Dale schedules it, materials are pulled from inventory, press operator runs the make ready, gets approval on a press proof, runs the job. Output goes to bindery or shipping. Job ticket closes in the MIS, Howard invoices the client. Clean process, documented at every step. Exactly the kind of system that makes unauthorized production nearly impossible, unless the person who controls the system is the same person running the unauthorized jobs. I asked to see the MIS job history for the trailing 90 days. Dale pulled it on a workstation and left me with it. I spent 3 hours in it on day 1 and found nothing irregular. Every job had a client, every client was in Getz system. Every materials pull matched a job ticket. On paper, the press was running exactly as it should. Which meant whatever was happening wasn't in the MIS. On day 3, I told Dale I needed to observe the night shift. Standard for a utilization audit. I needed to see both shifts to give Howard a complete picture. Dale arranged it. Kevin Marsh was notified that the consultant would be on the floor that evening. Kevin Marsh was 38, a press operator who had grown into the shift lead role without growing out of the press room. He still ran jobs himself when the crew was short, still knew every machine the way operators know machines, by sound and feel as much as by reading. He was polite to me in the way that someone is polite to a person they've been told to tolerate. He answered my questions, he didn't offer anything beyond the questions. The night shift ran 3 jobs that first evening. All of them were on the schedule, all of them had job tickets, all of them were legitimate Getz clients. The crew ran them efficiently. By 11 p.m., 2 of the 3 were complete and in bindery staging. The third was a longer run that would finish the following morning on day shift. At 11:45, Kevin told me the night's scheduled work was done and the crew would be doing press maintenance until their 2 a.m. end time. I told him I'd seen enough for the evening and left the building at midnight. I drove 2 blocks, parked, and waited. At 12:50 a.m., a van pulled into the Getz loading dock. Not a Getz vehicle, no livery, no markings, a plain white cargo van with Illinois plates. 2 people got out and went inside through the dock entrance. The dock door closed behind them. I noted the plates and the time. I did not go back inside. I had what I needed for the night, confirmation that something was moving through the loading dock after midnight that wasn't on any schedule I'd seen. I ran the plates the following morning. The van was registered to a company called Central Midwest Print Solutions. I searched the name. Central Midwest Print Solutions was a print broker, a company that sourced printing jobs from clients from clean and plate production facilities, no plant of its own. Registered in Illinois 2 years and 4 months ago. The registered agent was a filing service. The listed business address was a UPS store in Schaumburg. A print broker with no production capacity of its own making deliveries to a commercial printing plant after midnight. I needed to understand how the unauthorized jobs were being run without appearing in the MIS. A press job requires materials, paper stock, ink, plates, and those materials have to come from somewhere. If they were coming from Getz inventory, there would be a consumption discrepancy. If they were being brought in separately, there would be a delivery record. I spent day 4 and day 5 in the inventory system. Howard gave me full access. He wanted the consumables question answered, and inventory analysis was exactly what a production efficiency consultant would do. The inventory system showed materials in and materials out. Materials in, paper stock deliveries from Getz's primary paper merchant, ink deliveries from 2 suppliers, plates from the plate-making vendor. Materials out allocated to job tickets via the MIS. The reconciliation, what came in versus what went out on documented jobs, should net to current physical inventory. Howard did a physical count quarterly. The last count was 6 weeks prior. I requested a spot count on the high-volume paper grades, the stocks used most frequently for standard commercial work. The warehouse supervisor ran the count with me. We compared it against the inventory system balance. The system showed 4,216 sheets of a standard 60-pound coated stock into B2 size. The physical count was 3,140, a discrepancy of over 1,000 sheets on a single grade, not attributable to the 6 weeks since the last full count. The job ticket consumption in the MIS accounted for the expected reduction. The missing stock had no job ticket. It had simply been used and not recorded. I ran the same check on 4 other high-volume grades. All 4 showed physical inventory below system balance. Total unaccounted consumption across the 5 grades approximately 11,000 sheets with a materials cost of around $9,000 in 6 weeks. The unauthorized jobs were running on Getz's paper. The materials weren't being brought in. They were being pulled from inventory without a job ticket. Someone with access to the warehouse and authority to pull materials without logging them was supplying the night runs from Getz Laron stock.
Night shift materials pulls were authorized by Kevin Marsh, but the pull dog showed no unscheduled pulls during the periods I'd identified, which meant the materials were being pulled in advance, during day shift, attributed to legitimate jobs at quantities slightly above what those jobs actually required, and held aside. The excess never appeared as waste in the MIS because it never went through the MIS at all. It went to a separate staging area and waited for nightfall. That required someone on day shift to be pulling the excess. That required Dale Ferris. The scheme had two people at its center and a third at its edge. Dale Ferris controlled the production schedule, the MIS, and the materials allocation. He was the one who decided how much stock to pull for each job. He was the one who could attribute a slightly inflated materials pull to a legitimate job without triggering a review. Waste and spoilage on press jobs is normal, and a production manager's estimate of how much stock a given job might consume has enough natural variance to hide a systematic 10 to 15% surplus. Over 2 years, across hundreds of jobs, that surplus added up to 32% above expected consumables costs. Howard had noticed the number. He hadn't seen the mechanism. Kevin Marsh controlled the night shift. He ran the unauthorized jobs after the scheduled work was complete, or sometimes instead of maintenance, using the maintenance window as cover. He received the client's files via the van delivery, ran the jobs on the Getz equipment, and had the output ready for pickup before his shift ended at 2 a.m. The van came in, loaded, and left before day shift arrived at 6. Central Midwest Print Solutions was the client-facing entity. Someone, I didn't yet know who owned it, was selling printing services to real clients, quoting real prices, and fulfilling the orders using Getz plant at zero production cost.